What is going on, friends? Welcome into Mercado Airwaves. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. Today, we are joined by special guest from 670 to the Score. He is the executive producer of the Laurence Holmes Show from noon to 2, Monday through Friday on 670 the Score. He is also the host of the No Zones podcast. He is the executive producer of Behind the Headlines with Julie DeCaro. He is friend of the show, Tony Gill. We talk about the fallout of the Bulls draft, everything of the NBA free agency, and so much more. But before we get to Tony, here's a quick message.
What's up, friends? Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. If you missed any one of our past interviews with amazing guests like future Hall of Famer and pound for pound best fighter in the world, UFC flyweight champion Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson,
another day at the office, I get to go out there and test my skill.
To award-winning producer, director, and actor Orlando Jones.
Orlando, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, sir. I'm good, brother. How you doing?
And all the other interesting guests we've had on. Joining us today is director and writer David Ferrier.
Thanks so much, brother. I appreciate you having me on the show.
MMA legend Chael Sonnen joins us today.
Keep listening to your show. This is great. Thanks, my friend.
Just subscribe to us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. And while you're there, please like, review, and rate us, friends. It helps so much. We also have a Patreon for anyone who would like to support the show. Just visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves and see how you can get all of our interviews ad-free and before anyone else, and how you can get your business or company spotlighted on the show. Follow us on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/MikeMercado2333. And if you would like to see what we're up to behind the scenes, follow us on Instagram, MikeMercado2333. Thanks for listening and all the support.
Thank you for keeping it with us. Here's our interview with Bulls insider Tony Gill from 670 The Score. Enjoy.
What's going on, Tony? How you doing? Welcome back to the show, man. I go figure. We were supposed to have an off season, and it's been everything but off.
Yeah, it's been a wild NBA offseason. I was expecting a little bit of a break with no zones, but because of the way the NBA is set up, it's not really a break.
Well, it's funny because a little inside baseball. When that happens, like, how are you planning to produce the rest of the off season and the rest of the summer? Because it seems like the off season goes all season. There really only is like 2 weeks off. Do you have to kind of plan around that, or are you just kind of going with the flow because it is a very unique off season?
I just go with the flow. Depending on what's going on in the news and the topics of that week or so, I usually like to spread it out a bit with all my different responsibilities. When I'm planning another episode for No Zones or something like that, I make sure that I'm paying attention to what's going on, take note of it. Is it enough to talk about it in a from 40 minutes to an hour or so? And if it is, boom, set it up. Do I need any guests? If I do, call them up, or if I want somebody to come in studio with me to discuss, set that up. Yeah, I take into account all the different details that goes into planning a show and the news. And make sure I'm on point with everything.
And Tony is literally one of the best guys that we have, not only in Chicago radio, but in general, this podcast and media world. Tony is, for all you who want to know a little bit, who love the behind the curtain stuff, he's one of the best dudes. He covers the teams, and he produces some of the best. I mean, Laurence Holmes from noon to 2 might be the best radio show in Chicago right now. And all us nighttime listeners, all us night owls that kind of were listening to them over the last few years, getting this in the mid-afternoon has been awesome. So you guys all need to check that out. But even more importantly, and a shout out to our guy Laurence, but more importantly, you and our guy Rick were on No Zones just a few days ago that you guys could get on 670thescore.com, the radio app, and it's a great listen about the NBA, but also what the Bulls did this past week with the draft. And Tony, is interesting. Last time we had you on, we were really high on thinking maybe John Morant, maybe Zion, and for them to fall to 7, like, before we get into the pick, what did you think? Like, everybody saw the funny video that you had on social media, but kind of when the dust settled, what was your initial thought of that pick?
When the lottery came down and the Bulls turned up, they had 7. My initial feeling was this was a missed opportunity to change the fortunes and trajectory of the Bulls for the next 10 years. The top 2 players in this draft, John Morant and Zion Williamson, have the potential to change your franchise in a dramatic fashion, and the Bulls didn't get that opportunity because they were at 7. I'm not saying that there isn't potential in any other of the other draftees, but yeah, I felt comfortable enough to say Zion Williamson and John Morant could change your franchise in a very, very positive way. and the Bulls missed out. So it was disappointing. Also being a Bulls fan, not only covering the team, but also still being a fan of the team and want the team to do well and have good things. And it was just unfortunate that they ended up with 7. But that's why it's called the lottery.
With that, they ended up kind of cashing in on Coby White. And it was interesting because as it was going down, it almost felt, and you know how I feel about this front office. I think most of us kind of feel the same about this front office. But what was interesting to me was almost it literally falling in their lap after all the things were said and done, after all the craziness of New Orleans and Memphis getting 1 and 2, the Lakers and Anthony Davis, it kind of felt like other than the 2 guys that you really wanted, the Bulls almost failed upwards. Like they got the guy they kind of wanted. I didn't see anybody else on the board that they could kind of sell to the public. I feel like this was the perfect kind of a player for this front office to get out there, get in front of the media, and really drive home that this is who they wanted, this fits their need. And it just so happened to actually be at point guard. But, I mean, am I off on that, just kind of thinking they kind of failed upwards in getting Coby at 7?
They certainly, didn't have to move up. I mean, going into the draft, you saw all this movement, Minnesota moving up, Atlanta moving up. And you thought at least Minnesota they were gonna take one of those point guards. The Lakers that they were gonna take before they moved out. Before they traded the pick, you thought the Lakers were gonna take a point guard. They ended up trading that to New Orleans, and New Orleans ended up trading that pick. But it felt like Jarrett Culver was going to be the guy at 7 left on the board for the Bulls to take. And I would have had no problem with that as well. I mean, after 1 and 2. And maybe 3 if you want to add R.J. Barrett in there. The draft, in terms of potential talent, seemed typically the same bunch. Like, it was all random after that throughout the draft. So them ended up with Coby White, where the worst-case scenario for the Bulls would have been trying to trade up to take one of those point guards, giving away assets to move up to take Darius Garland or Coby White, whichever one they had higher on their draft board, would have been horrible for the Bulls because they can't afford to just give away assets, especially in this draft, which is particularly weak. So that would have been the worst case scenario. It didn't happen. Coby fell to the Bulls, and you're right. By happenstance, they didn't have the opportunity to fail because it landed right in their lap.
And before we go on to what could be more success or failure, depending on your view of what they might be doing in the free agency, let me run this by you. So I love Zion, and I love what John are going to bring to the NBA. There's going to be a learning curve. There's growing pains. We all know that. We all know the cliches. But you know what? It's funny. I have a feeling that the pro's pro, the guy who's going to have the longest career, make the most amount of money over time, is R.J. Barrett. And the fact that he's going to go to the Knicks, who other than him, he is the foundation. He's the skeleton. Is it possible, from what you've seen and, kind of talking around the locker rooms, is it going to be possible for somebody like RJ at the right situation, could be a superstar? Is he going to be able to, flourish in Madison Square Garden? Do you think that he has the infrastructure for that to happen?
He has the potential to do it, but when you mean like longest career, potential to make the most money, Vince Carter is still playing. The best of his generation. He's just playing a long time. But if RJ is set up correctly, and I like David Fizdale, I think he's a good coach. I'm actually kind of rooting for the Knicks to succeed, because I do like David Fizdale, and I do think he's a good coach. And I want him to have the pieces necessary to prove that he can coach at a high level. Unfortunately, the owner is still Dolan, and he still has a reputation around the league and amongst fans, being a bad CEO of that organization. But yeah, at this point, I will give R.J. Barrett the benefit of the doubt that say he can do something great in New York. But he's going to need some help. It doesn't look like in free agency New York is going to be taken that seriously. It seems like they may just have to wait out this free agent year, go into the lottery next year, because they will be bad if they don't get a star or a max guy there. They will be in the lottery again, and then try it again. Keep that space open. If they're smart, they won't spend the money because they have it this season. if nobody that you like is there and they don't come to the Knicks, if they just stay put, wait it out, let these guys grow. I mean, they still got some young talent, Dennis Smith Jr., Alonzo Trier. They got pieces to kind of feel out and work out to see what they have. They don't have to spend, the money just because they have it. So, yeah, I'll give you that. Maybe R.J. Barrett can become a superstar.
And it's going to be interesting kind of seeing how all the pieces fall into this. And I highly suggest, guys, check out the newest episodes of No Zones. Rick Camp was on it. You can check it out over at 670thescore.com. It's on the radio app. Friend of the show, Tony Gill, is joining us today. Follow him on Twitter at TonyGill670. He's on all that and all the socials, so please follow our guy there. He's the executive producer of the Laurence Holmes Show from noon to 2 on 670. And you're also the EP of Behind the Headlines with Julie, which is amazing. The Michael Jordan's father case was phenomenal work. I can't wait when you guys announce. I think you said on the show in July you're announcing the next season, right?
Yeah, at the end of July, we're going to announce the topic that we're doing for Season 2 of Behind the Headlines. I mean, it's another fantastic story. I don't want to give too much away, but I'll drop. It's another basketball topic, but it's crazy interesting, and I think people are going to like it. And I think a lot of people missed this story because it was kind of like, a passerby. You hear the name of the person that we're doing this series on, you're going to be like, "Whoa, wow, I forgot about that." And if you haven't heard about it, trust me, it's super interesting, almost just as interesting as the James Jordan case, but I don't think not quite, but it's still very, very intriguing.
And it's the right people behind it with you and Julie and that whole staff. You guys do amazing work. And, this is one of the reasons why you're not only one of my favorite guests, but one of the favorite people that we have in our media right now. And, I want to kind of, this is what's been bugging me, Tony, all right, about the Bulls. They have a lot of assets. They have a lot of pieces. I got to be honest with you. I like a lot of the guys on this team. Obviously not enough to say, like you guys were mentioning on the podcast, 20-plus more wins to get to the playoff. But I like some of the pieces on this staff. I like the work I'm seeing from Zach and his dad on social media. I think Chris Dunn is going to have some things to answer, some critics to answer, and maybe that's the fire under his ass, whether it's here in Chicago or somewhere else. There's pieces on here. But the grand scheme of all this, Tony, I don't understand. They're not any closer to winning a title. They're not any closer to bringing in a star free agent. Where are we? Are they the definition of NBA hell? What is the goal here? I mean, we've saw what Toronto could do, the NBA champions. They developed, they scouted, and they brought in a top-tier guy. The blueprint is there. What are the Bulls doing? What is all this leading to?
Well, I'm not going to say they're NBA hell. If all their core guys were seasoned veterans and they were coming back, that's NBA hell. That talent has capped off. These guys are still young. They're still, in their late teens, early 20s. The majority of the guys that you think are going to stick around, they're really, really young. And they haven't played a whole lot of games together. So we still don't know the amount of upside that this group has just yet. And not knowing is a good thing at this point. Because you can still go out there and see what you have, see if this group can go on together. Can they compete? Can they get along and stuff like that? Can they respond well to Jim Boylan's style of coaching for the next 3 seasons that he signed for? I mean, there's still stuff that we don't know about this group yet because of the youth on this team. So they're not an NBA hell. But, I mean, everybody wants to win a championship, as soon as possible. But one thing that in my just one season, of covering a basketball team and getting, the firsthand knowledge, it takes a long time championship. You look at how Golden State built what they built. That was years of drafting, like 3 consecutive hits with Steph, Clay, and Draymond. That took a while. And then it took a year, a couple years after that for them to, kind of figure it out between themselves. So that's 4 years minimum right there. So it's going to take a while, and fans have to realize that it's going to take a while. And I get it. Trust me. With Garpax, I know people are done. I'm done with it. But the matter of fact is they're still here, and they're not going to get fired. So once you get past that, it's like, okay, what is the next step for them? what can they do specifically, Gar Forman and John Paxson, to get them close to winning championships? Well, you draft well, and you scout well, and you develop. Now, they drafted relatively well. We'll give them that. I mean, Jimmy Butler, they made some decent, picks. Now it's about development. The guys that they have now going forward, they need to make sure that one, they're healthy, they're building up their bodies, their training staff is on point, because this team, with these guys, they have injury issues. Lauri Markkanen, Chris Dunn, Zach LaVine. You can call them, some of them were freakish, kind of out of the blue injuries, but still, injuries that takes away time from them meshing together on the basketball court. That's an issue. But yeah, it's going to take a while for them to win a championship. We wanted to rebuild, even though it's taking a little bit longer than we thought it was going to be. I think we got to give them time to see if they have an upcoming star, or if this works to woo maybe another potential star down the road and say, oh, wow, look what the Bulls have. They got Lauri Markkanen and Zach LaVine and Coby White. And, that's all it takes. All it takes for is, a couple good seasons of people looking at the Bulls and say they have a really nice young core. All they need is a superstar to pair with them, and they'll be just fine. And sometimes that's all it takes.
And you know what, Tony? The NBA is one of those rare sports where the growth is not only just in development, and it is true the development is so key, especially with such young guys, but you also have to learn in the playoffs. Think about how many times DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry got bounced in the playoffs. Think about how many times Milwaukee was a one-and-done team. You have to develop and learn to lose, get some battle scars. The NBA is a weird league like that. Star players get their time in the sun. Different eras go through the league. I think it's very poignant for you to also bring up that even if they get all their pieces, we saw during the Derrick years, you got to earn it. You got to get to it, and you got to be fortunate enough to have the health and, your front office being creative enough to make sure you have the depth and the talent around you. I think that's a great point that I think a lot of fans lose sight of,
Yeah, no, and trust me, I get why they lose sight of that, because they have been annoying. Gar Forman and John Paxson have been extremely annoying on building this team and getting it to championship contention. But they're here. They're not going to get fired anytime soon.
Yep.
Like, anytime soon. We're stuck with them. If you are a Bulls fan, this is your vice president of basketball ops, and this is your GM. So you're just going to have to go on for the ride. Hopefully that these guys can develop. They turn into assets, and then maybe you're in a Toronto situation where you have enough assets to flip, because the superstars, they're going to continue to be angry with, where they are. Somebody's going to be upset. You want to be in the right spot in terms of cap flexibility and the amount of assets and picks that you have to be able to flip what you have, because they're not good at free agency. So
right.
They're not going to be able to woo these guys just off the market. So you're going to have to be ready at a moment's notice when Anthony Davis or, LeBron, or not saying LeBron's going to be mad, but those people of that ilk, when they are ready to be traded for, that you're in that in those calls and in those rooms when it's time to flip some of these assets, and don't get too attached to them. Be ready to move on to take that risk for that superstar, like Usai Ujiri did with the Toronto Raptors and Kawhi Leonard.
And it's interesting that at the end of it is going to be the same front office that I just crapped on was the organization that put themselves in the right position when they got Carlos Boozer, because they put themselves in the position to try to get Dwayne Wade, LeBron, or Chris Bosh. So they have at times been able to do it. It just it's been a long time, and they rest on their laurels of that time way too much, talking about, well, if Derek's injury wasn't this or Derek injuries wasn't that was almost 10 years ago. So I think they put their hat on that too much. But you're right, they have done it, and that's what it takes. Tony, I've taken a lot of your time, so before we get out of here, brother, I know you've had a busy days behind the curtain. Tony's also one of the guys behind Cubs Baseball on 670 The Score to make sure it gets to all you lovely people, and he actually joined us right after the game. So shout out to our guy Tony. But Tony, we'll do two quick ones, all right? A fun one, but we'll stay with the NBA on the first one. If anybody wants any free agent stuff, we'll talk to Tony in a few months about that. We don't need to bug him. Check out the podcast. Him and Rick talked about that. Coby White, tell me, what's the floor and what's the ceiling in your crystal ball? The Tony Gill crystal ball. What is the upside to Coby, and what is the absolute worst case scenario that you can see is a legitimate possibilities at both ends?
Well, the upside is, you have a starter for the future of this franchise where you don't have to worry about the point guard position for your team going forward for the next, 7 or 8 years. Because that's how much control you have, over your first-round picks, in today's game. So hopefully you have a guy that can spread the floor, that can run your offense properly, that can defend his position because he's 6'5". He has, decent enough size to guard. He's very fast. He can maybe quick. He can keep up with these quicker point guards, in the NBA. Today is a dominant point guard game. You need to have a guy that can at least slow down, his opponent that he's facing and be able to give his opponent a hard time, in guarding him. Chris Dunn couldn't do that. Guys didn't have to worry about, playing Chris Dunn because he wasn't that great offensively. Wasn't a great three-point shooter. Didn't finish at the rim very well. Couldn't, get the offense going enough and wasn't consistent in that aspect. So you're hoping that at least that you have a starter for the next 8 years for your team. Now, worst case scenario is you don't know what you have in Coby White. You're in the lottery because of bad point guard play again this year. And now you have to make a decision on taking another point guard in next year's draft, which is actually a better draft for point guards going into next year. Now you have to make a decision of, now, if you can't get rid of Chris Dunn, you have Chris Dunn on the roster. They signed Ryan Arcidiacono, so you got him on the roster. And then you got Coby White, who you drafted in the lottery at 7. And now you're going into another draft with the potential to take another point guard. So now you're stuck. So that's worst case scenario where you don't have any use for them. He can't defend. The game is too much for him. He gets overwhelmed, and you have to bring him off the bench. That's the worst case scenario because you wasted a lottery pick on a guy you thought that could be your starter for the next few years. Now you're stuck with him for the next few years. So that's worst case scenario for the Bulls.
Tony, that sounds all too real, my brother. That sounds like a horrible, legitimate reality. Tony, before we get you out of here, you're always awesome. You're super generous with your time here on the network, and you do all this work. But my brother, I got 2 things to tell you before we let you go. 1, oatmeal cookies are trash, and Game of Thrones, the final season, was amazing. What is wrong with you, bro?
2 opposite opinions of mine. Cookies are the most underrated of cookies. Like, it's so great. You've never had a hard oatmeal raisin cookie. They're always soft. They're always flavorful. I've never had a bad oatmeal cookie. I've had terrible chocolate chip cookies. The highs of that doesn't have. I can't take the risk of having a bad cookie. So I'm always going to go with something that I know is going to be good 100% of the time. And Game of Thrones, the pacing was absolutely horrible.
I agree with that.
Horrible. You can't tell that story and flesh it out in 6, 7 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that. And then to hear that they have the option of continuing the story past this season and at minimum do it in 10 episodes, and they were like, no, we're done with it. It's like it took our favorite show, and they said we're done with it. We have no use for it, even though it was HBO's biggest moneymaker. Like, that whole situation was done. I'm glad it's over. I did enjoy the ride, though. It's still a Hall of Fame great show, but they absolutely screwed us in that last season.
So it was Jordan in the Wizards jersey is what you're telling me?
Worse than that.
Oh, come on.
40 in Wizards, so I can't give him that.
Tony, you're the best, my guy. Thank you for everything. Executive producer of the Laurence Holmes Show. Make sure you check him out from noon to 2 for these hot takes, guys, on 670 The Score on the radio app. He covers the Bulls, executive producer of Behind the Headlines, The Amazing Show with Julie DeCaro, and, of course, No Zones. Check out the latest episode. Wow, bro, wow, with Rick Camp is all I have to say. Make sure you guys check out Tony Gill 670. Tony, you're the best, my brother. Thank you for everything, man.
Thanks, Mike. No problem, man. Anytime.
Enjoy our shows? Follow the Mercado Airwaves crew all over social media. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. On Instagram, Nicole is at Typing When Tipsy. Alex is at Mercado2121. Mike is at Mike Mercado2333. And our true crime show is at Murder Mysteries and More. And on Twitter, Nicole is at Typing When Tipsy. Alex is at Mercado21Alex. And Mike is at Mercado2333. You can follow the network at Mercado Airwaves. Follow our pop culture show on Twitter at Good Brothers Pod. Get us on the go by downloading our programs anywhere you get your favorite podcast, like iTunes, SoundCloud, Podbean, Stitcher, and other popular sites. Just search us at Mercado Airwaves. While you're at it, please like, rate, review, and share us with your friends. Visit us on youtube.com/Mike Mercado 2333. Click the subscribe and like button to get notified every time a new episode or interview is posted. Support Mercado Airwaves by visiting patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves, the home of our interviews with athletes and celebrities, which you can get ad-free and early before it's released to the public. Come play video games with us on Twitch. Twitch.tv/Mercado Airwaves Network. Mercado Airwaves is powered by Munch Art Design. Like them on Facebook at Munch Art Design. Voiceover work on Mercado Airwaves is performed by Josh Fox.